this was such a good recommendation, and it's time to pick our movie of the night. Now this one was recommended in the comments. I just want it to be over. So this was quite a book. It's time to announce the Literally Dead Book Club selection for November. Hello friends, it's Kayla. I'm so excited for this week's reading vlog. I have a book club, if you didn't know, if I haven't talked about it enough by now. It's called the Literally Dead Book Club. If you want merch, there's a link down below. The book club is in its 3rd year and we read thrillers, mystery, and horror books. 10 months out of the year, I pick a book that we read together, and then we have a live show at the end of every month. There has been fantastic co-hosts that have come in over the years, and they are very much going to be the entire inspiration for this reading vlog. If you've participated even once, attended one of these live shows even once, you know that my favorite question to ask is, does anyone have any recommendations for other books like this? I just love hearing recommendations from people, hearing how one book they think is similar to another book, why if you love this book, you'll love this book. And then a couple months back, I got this comment from Kate. Video idea. I read the thrillers my Literally Dead Book Club hosts recommend, and I was sold. A couple other people have also recommended this idea to me, so while I post little teasers on my Instagram throughout the week, I have a feeling people will be able to guess the theme. But what I've done is I've gone back and looked at all the live shows and picked out a selection of books that were recommended in the moment. And I feel like this is a pretty risky TBR of all the TBRs I've ever built for videos. The thing about these is a lot of them were selected just because the person had such passion for them. And it's not actually based on me enjoying the book club selections, because if you don't know, like, I always have a mixed bag of ratings by the end of the year of my own book club, things that I hate, things that I love. And the book club picks and the situations and the conversations that were going on at the time, these aren't all books that were recommended for books that I myself loved. But these are 7 books that have come up that I thought would be interesting things to read with you. We have Theme Music, The Whisper Network, The Cutting Season, Never Let Me Go, The Companion, Nana, and The Devil and the Dark Water. Each time I pick up a book, I will talk about where the recommendation came from, why it was recommended, share a little clip. One of these actually came from the comment section rather than a host. But the main goal with the books that I pulled is these are not books that I could see myself reading in any other capacity. I wouldn't have heard of them if not for the book club hosts. Either I had preconceived ideas of what they were, or I had never heard of them, or in this case, it's just been on my TBR for so aggressively long that I didn't know when I would ever pick it up. In fact, this is the earliest, or should I say the longest ago of any of these books that had been recommended to me. And I had completely forgotten in what capacity this was recommended to me at all. To this day, Catherine House by Elizabeth Thomas is what I consider one of my most successful book club picks for myself, but the most unsuccessful for the group. It has a super low average rating, but I gave it 5 stars. And then Erin told me that Never Let Me Go is something that I might also like, or that people who like Catherine House should also read.
If you like Catherine House, I think you will absolutely love Never Let Me Go. And it's short. Ooh. It takes place in Britain. It takes us at a school. We're being told a story. So she's an adult telling us the story of, it's like K through 12, where they're at this house that's like Catherine. Mainly these 3 characters, and we follow them as they discover more about who they are, what this school is, because they don't have to pay anything. Is people come and they don't have contact with the outside world.
This was 2 years ago now, and I still haven't read it. But listen, neither has Meg. And all of us at the live show gave Catherine House 4 or 5 stars. And then Erin recommended this, and Meg and I were both like, oh, that's on our TBRs. But then Erin hit us with a plot twist.
And I gave it 1 star. But, which means I think y'all would like it even more. I think that's a nod in your favor.
And when someone hates a book but is determined to still recommend it and find it its audience, I love that so much, because I feel the same way about my own reading recommendations. So this is where we're going to start. I do have a couple other Kazuo Ishiguros on my shelf that I haven't read. So this will be a good place to start. And lucky me, there's a bookmark in here. I always love finding bookmarks in donated books, because like, I need to know, did this person stop here? Or is this at the point where they like couldn't put it down and just sped through the last 50 pages? I don't know. We'll see how it goes. I am not feeling well today. Like super not good. I felt like this yesterday too. I've barely read anything. I'm 50 pages into Never Let Me Go. I have no idea what this is about. And I don't know if it's my attention span or the book just being like weird. Maybe it's a combination of both, but I don't know. I don't know what's going on. It's like all of these children at this school, and they have to be donors, but I don't even know what that means. And then they make art, and then like they get their art taken away, and then they can like buy art from each other within the school, and that's the only possessions they'll ever own. But then I think most of the book is going to be set later in the future, following 3 main characters, and I don't know, like their current lives, them reflecting on their childhood in this school. I'm about to do a live show for What Moves the Dead with Erin, actually, which is fun. We'll see if she recommends anything new in that live show. I can't add anything to my TBR at this point, but this actually has her tied for the second most recurring guest on the Literally Dead book club. Number 1 is Chanelle, and then there's Erin, Ellias, and Meg, who've all been on 4 times. I just forgot why I was even in the kitchen. I'm refilling my coffee container. I need some coffee. I don't know if I'm not feeling well because I'm tired, or I'm sick, or I'm about to get sick, or what's going on with me. Hopefully I find some energy for the live show. Oh, also, well, I don't want to spill this. Also in the kitchen, I just grabbed my little ghost cup, because speaking of Ellias, I just realized I don't have a book from him here, but he always gives really fantastic movie recommendations during the live shows, and I like never watch any of them because I never watch movies. So I was thinking what I'll do, maybe after I've finished, I want to say, I don't know why I'm showing you this, coffee, finish every 2 books or something like that, I will watch a movie. One of them I want to watch is Never Let Me Go. I think I'm going to want to watch the adaptation. We'll see though. You know what? Fun fact about me, never seen a movie with Keira Knightley. Not once. Never. Apparently she's in it, Carey Mulligan, and what's that guy's name? Andrew Garfield. So I think I'll watch that, and then I'm currently going through the live shows again and pulling out all of the movie recommendations, and I'm putting them here. Oh gosh, 50% of them are gonna be from Ellias, and then I'll just pull something out because like all of them are recommended for a reason. I don't watch enough thriller movies specifically, so I think that'll be fun. Anyway, gonna make a coffee, do the live show, read a little bit more. I'll update you when I know what the heck is even going on in this book. This book is 260 pages. That's it. And it's taken me 3 days already, and I'm still not done. I'm now on to part 3, and I don't care. I just want it to be over. I get what it's done for other people. I get the purpose of it. Like at this point, I want to talk about spoilers so bad. I understand why people tell you to go into this not knowing anything. It's her reflecting on her role, but more just so the relationships that go on. Like she has a friend named Ruth, and she has a friend named Tommy, and there are people sleeping together, and she's jealous, and she's having arguments, and she's looking at porn, and she's having conversations about how much she wants to have sex and other people don't, and so like that makes her weird. I'm gonna finish it, and I'm gonna give it 2 stars. Hello? My camera doesn't want me to talk about this book with you. I finished it, and I'm giving it 2 stars. Now the question is, do I understand where the recommendation came from? And I absolutely do. They're both kind of school environments. We're from the perspective of a young woman who is discussing her time. It's a little bit speculative. There's groups of friends. There's questioning what's really going on here, and do they really belong here? And like I said, Erin liked this and didn't like this, so it was a risky pick to begin with, but I'm kind of glad that we have similar thoughts because we disagree so often about so many books. And I really think that the people who love Never Let Me Go probably won't like Catherine House, and I would most recommend this for people who read this for the book club and hated it, because maybe this has all the conversations and things that you were hoping for. To me, this was a intellectual literary sci-fi, if I were to categorize it. I don't know what I would call this one, but this is so much more of a kind of dream state that we are both in. There's a lot of ambiguity here. In this one, we are lost as the reader for a bit, but eventually come to understand everything. The main character has a very clear awareness, not of the outside world, but of the situations that she is in, though she might not always understand why. This is a very isolated story, and the people in the boarding school are intentionally left out of the broader world and understanding what goes on outside themselves. Catherine House is the type of place that you are aware of how isolated it is, but you come from the bigger world and you want to be a part of this tight-knit community, even if you don't really know what you're getting into. For me, it just didn't work. I didn't like their narrator voice. I didn't enjoy the way that she was telling this story. I didn't care about all of the silly little things that were going on. I wanted to learn more about what was actually going on and not the interpersonal relationships, because I also don't feel like we got past like a surface level with a lot of these characters. And nothing that I'm really saying about this book is a flaw, because I understand why it was set up the way it was and why the characters act the way that they do and why they have a lack of questioning, why it lacked some emotional impact, why it lacked certain conversations about morality. Like, it all makes sense. I just didn't have a great time. I don't love the constant references to like, you will understand all of this later. A little bit of that is fine and actually enjoyable for me, but every single chapter it felt like she would lay out this big experience but only let us in a little bit and then say something ominous like, I wouldn't understand this to mean this until later on. And it just made the reading experience quite exhausting for me. I do indeed think that the bookmark being on this page was interesting, because this is where we get a certain question, and then the only part in the book where I find there to be any semblance of the idea of tension, and you don't really want to stop until you understand what everything means. Though I still was not enjoying myself at any point. Honestly, like, a little bit baffled by this being as popular as it is. I don't actually think I'm gonna watch the film, and I'm sure that's gonna annoy someone because they're gonna be like, oh, but the film is so good. But I'd rather just move on to the next thing before I end up in a reading slump. So next we're gonna talk about The Paris Apartment. And for this, it's a little bit different because I did not like this. I gave this one 2 stars. And the live show for this also included Megan, and then we had Bree and Chanelle. Bree and Chanelle had similar ratings to me, but Megan gave it 5 stars. And I definitely never want to feel like any of the creators who offered recommendations feel like put on the spot. They said that this was going to be identical. So the thing that happens in the recommendation section of all of these live shows is I just hear about things I've never heard about before. And they could come up in like totally random ways too. So it could just be that there's a small element of something that sparked something in that person's brain that they were like, oh, if you like, you know, an isolated setting and gossip, like that's all that you might have taken from it. And here's a book that has that too. And I think that's what's fun about these recommendations is I'm not looking for something identical to this, because I didn't love this. But if there's an element that I did like about it and I have liked in other books, I'm excited to get a recommendation for that. So I wish I could refilm the intro, because I just watched the live show back to pull out the clips, and there was actually a whole nother book recommended that I forgot about. So these are the 3 books I grabbed, one from each host, kind of. So let me explain and then I'll pick where I want to start. The first one was recommended by Megan, and that's The Devil in the Dark Water by Stuart Turton, who I only just upon posting this picture on Instagram realized, based on people's guesses of the theme, that this is the same author as The 7.5 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle, which I loved. Completely ignored his name, this little thing. Like, that's why I even know what this book is because it's the same author. And Megan didn't like the Evelyn Hardcastle book, but loved this, and specifically was talking about how people tend to recommend mystery and thrillers in tandem, which is something I do all the time, which I hate. But this is such a mystery book, and she would recommend it to mystery fans specifically, and that's also how she feels about this.
If you're looking for another book that has such like a vivid setting, where the setting is like such a part of the book, The Devil in the Dark Water by Stuart Turton. It's set on a boat in like the 1600s, and our protagonist is like the Watson to this famous detective who has been imprisoned on the boat. So the detective, who's like really great at figuring stuff out, is stuck. He can't help solve the mysteries of what is happening on the boat.
Next up, Bree mentioned Nana by Brandon Massey.
He is probably one of my favorite suspense and thriller writers. He's a Black man. His book called Nana It's giving secrets. It's giving a lot of stuff. Horny grandma. I like to always tell people there's a horny grandma in it, which I think is like one of the best parts of the book.
So because of the secrets and there being an old lady character, so I was more than happy to immediately add it to my TBR. And then my memory of the live show is that Chanelle mentioned The Companion by Katie Allender, but it was actually Brie who brought it up and Chanelle that remembered she had also read it.
It was like a YA book. It's about this girl. I think she got orphaned. Her family had a lawyer and she went to go live with them. And the mom was like, I want you to live here and help take care of my daughter. You know what I'm talking about?
I feel like I do.
And that I would suggest that one. It's YA and G. The Companion. Woo!
Yeah. She's like trapped and she's supposed to be taking care of the girl, and then it's like a really weird. So
this was about the family gossip, the isolated setting, and this is one that I am hesitant about. But then I forgot that Chanelle mentioned Smell of Favors, which I already have on my TBR shelf.
And then the other one I have is not a thriller, but it's more of like a horror, fantasy horror, but I just have to recommend it because, oh my goodness. Small Favors by Aaron A. Craig. If you love small town drama, gossiping, being like, what's reality, what's fake, and you love like really tiny and close, like wintry, people are struggling to survive, you're gonna love that book. Like, I gave it 5 stars. It was so good.
It's equally long. They're both YA. I, at this point, want to swap this in because I know how much she loved Small Favors, and this felt like more of a strong recommendation in the moment than I had remembered this to be. But what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna read the first couple chapters of both of these, and hopefully, I mean, they both go well and I can just make room for both of them, but we'll just see how it goes. So I don't even know where I want to start. I've got 3 giant books and a little one, so I mean, this feels like a good choice. I just read 160 pages in one sitting, so I only have like 70, 80 to go. This story is about a woman whose adopted mother died, and her biological mother appears and is like, I'm gonna move in with you, I'm gonna take care of your kids, I'm gonna support you. So she's looking for that love and support and to fill in a little missing piece in her life, so she accepts her into their home. And then she begins, the grandmother, Nana, her mother, to become involved with her husband. And there's a lot of very graphic scenes. She is indeed a horny grandmother, and while that's happening, she appears to be getting younger and her daughter appears to be getting older. It seems like a pretty standard, I said this before, like horror story, and it's exactly what I expected. And at this point, I'm just wondering where the heck the story is going to go, because it's been exactly as I've expected it to be. People are starting to recognize her like weirdness, but other people don't want to believe that she's not really her mother or she's not doing something shady. And so there's some different opinions battling, and I like it. It's making me wildly uncomfortable, but I think it's well done. So excited to see how it's gonna end. Good morning. I finished Nana and I'm giving it 4 stars, which I think is the exact same rating that Brie gave it. I'm just on my way to a dentist appointment, actually a dentist date with my husband, because we both have to get cavities filled. And so I'm gonna be sitting there waiting for him for like an hour, and I'm gonna start the audiobook of The Devil in the Dark Water, so I didn't bring it with me, but I got it from the library. And I feel like after my face is frozen, I'm not gonna wanna physically read, but it'll be nice to be told a story throughout the day. So it's so interesting. As much as like I feel like I read people's recommendations all the time, it's not often that there's one specific person whose reading taste I'm like, getting to know and then reading something that they enjoyed, because I was very much aware while reading this why Bree would have enjoyed this, and more of that experience than comparing it to the Paris apartment. I can see the reference to family secrets for sure, and kind of an isolated, I mean, we are in a building for a lot of the story, but outside of that, it was more just interesting because I've had Bree on a few times, and there's one specific book that comes to mind that she enjoyed, and it was hard to wrap my mind around why certain things worked for her, and I actually think really similar things in here. I could just see her liking this. Like, while I was reading, this is something that I might have recommended to her, and I also understand why it would be recommended to me specifically, especially because of the ending. And when I glance at the Goodreads, a lot of the low ratings are specifically talking about the ending, which is something that's very much my taste, but I understand doesn't work for everybody. It was definitely uncomfortable to read. Like, I wasn't having a good time, but I still enjoyed it, if that makes sense. I think the characters are hard to get on board with all the decisions that they're making, but if you can look past that, then I would recommend it. I would say this fits in more the suspense genre than thriller or horror. Anyway, I think that's it. I gotta go get my teeth drilled into, so I'll see you when I'm done. Hello, it's me with a shirt the same color to match my book. Oh my god, my closet's open. How could I let the demons out? I forgot to vlog with my face frozen for the lulz, but I have all of the feeling back in my face, and I wanted to update you because I'm 60 pages into The Devil and the Dark Water, and I'm starting over. There are just too many characters, and I'm not following along very well in the audiobook, so I'm switching to the physical copy, and I'm just gonna start over. We have met so many people. I feel like I've already mixed them up, and then this one really did it for me. Chapter 11 had a bunch of people's names, and I was like, did we meet that person? Is that the person that was that person, or whatever? We have a main character, Sam, who is a great detective. It's 1634. For some reason, all of the boat books I read usually end up being historical fiction. Probably because boats were more a common mode of travel back then. Okay, anyway, he's a detective who maybe committed a crime, and now he's like a prisoner on the ship, and he has his bodyguard named Errant. And then we also have a noblewoman named Sarah, and I think she had this like mean husband, and then she has a daughter, and then they're trying to get someone off the ship. They're trying to protect someone. I don't even know who that was. So yeah, safe to say I need to start over. But then there's this ominous like image on the flag, and then it references a character who has that image on their body, and I was like, what? There's also a leper who died, but like, did he? And then we have somebody named Christy, and someone named Sanders, and someone named Johannes, and for only being 60 pages in, I should not be this lost. So let me start over. Okay, I am majorly beefing with my hair today, so just like, don't look at her, don't give her any attention, promise. I'm thinking about going fully blonde, or like, no, yeah. Is that chaotic? I don't know. Okay, so I'm pretty far into this, and boy does it feel long. Like, I'm only on page 325. I feel like I have read 600 pages by now, and I really remain of the opinion that I need to read the same genre back to back. When I dive into a genre I haven't read in a while, just the way that a certain genre is done, I need to be used to reading that type of book. So like, when a story is introducing all of this high fantasy jargon and there's all of this world building, if I haven't read a fantasy in a while, I'm like, I can't. And that's the way that I feel about mystery. And while I did just read 2 mysteries before this, they weren't really mysteries. So at this point, like, I'm having a fine time with it. My mind is really just not used to this huge cast of characters, and that is what lends itself well to a mystery novel, is that we have so many people. Now that I've switched to the physical copy, first up, there's a character list at the beginning that I'm constantly referencing now. Well, not at this point actually, but for the first half, I definitely needed to do that. Tried doing it in tandem for a bit, and the audiobook is different, just with character names. And I wonder if that's because people were confused by all of the characters, or just in audiobook format it started to feel confusing, because when there's just a name on a page in the audiobook, it says like their full name and rank, and there are some characters where it just says their last name throughout the whole book, and in the audiobook it actually never uses their last name and just calls them, for example, the Governor General instead of, what's his name? Jan Han? Anyway, here's what I'll say about this. Atmosphere, 100%. Writing, 100%. I have been highlighting just like beautiful phrases. Like, it was that strange time when the sun and stars try to bustle by each other, one coming and the other going. And then courage isn't an absence of fear. It's the light we find when fear is all there is. And the most recent one is, it wasn't about the phrase, it was just like something I wanted to stick in my mind. Whether this is a devil dressed as a man or a man dressed as a devil, our course of action remains the same. So here are the mysteries going on in here. We have a character who's been imprisoned and we don't know what his crime is. And there are people who are trying to like find out what his crime was, but it was just like so horrific that they don't even want to talk about it. And then there's a mystery of this thing called the Folly that I don't think is in the synopsis, but there's basically this item that they brought onto the ship, but you don't even know what the item is or what it does. But it's like this super important, expensive item, and people are trying to like steal it and hide it, and it's going missing. And I don't know that I've ever read a book that set itself up quite like this. And then another mystery is deaths that are happening. And there's this guy, oh my god, what was his name? Old Tom, sorry, who might be this like devil entity that is like, should I be telling you that? Devilry begins to blight the voyage. A dead leper stalks the decks. There's whispers in the darkness promising 3 unholy miracles followed by a slaughter. But the thing is, they don't know if it's actually a supernatural thing or not. And I really liked that line because as I don't really love books that set themselves up to be supernatural and then turn out not to be, I feel like as a book, that's something that's important to remember. Like, regardless of what's actually going on and if there's ghosts and if there's demons and whatever, the people who are solving the mysteries, their goals are the same. They still need to find out the same mystery. And regardless of the outcome, like, that doesn't change the way that the book should go. So naturally, because this book is a little supernatural, I'm assuming this one's going to be, but even if it's not, I don't think that in this case I will mind whichever direction it goes. Hello, I'm making my favorite dinner. It's mushroom orzo, and I got cool mushrooms, lobster mushrooms, and is it called lion's mane mushrooms? Something like that. Asparagus, cherry tomatoes or plum tomatoes, I don't remember what I bought, and that's that. I also got this little mug in the mail that I'm very excited about from Anthropology. It's covered in gourds. So I finished the book, and with the amount that I kind of struggled with a lot of it, I feel like I just can't give it more than 3.5, but 3.5 is a good rating, so I'm fine with that. I literally just finished it, so I'm excited to go look at some reviews because I feel like the ending is probably pretty polarizing. But if I'm remembering correctly, the 7.5 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle also had a weird ending. I need to reread that one day. I feel like it might be good to do with my besties book club. So I just started a book club with my channel members where we do a seasonal read. Today, actually, I'm gonna figure out what the poll says in regards to this season. I think The Weight of Blood is going to win, but there will be some seasons where we reread some of, or I reread and everyone reads for maybe the first time, some of my favorites. And I'm considering The Dreamers by Karen Thompson Walker as one of them. Maybe we'll do a childhood favorites one day, but also the Evelyn Hardcastle would be good. Just because I feel like there's a lot to talk about. And so I finished this one not loving the ending, and then I was standing here just pondering while I was like turning on the oven and stuff. And I was like, I actually have a theory about the ending and why the ending makes sense if you consider that it's actually like tied in with the Evelyn Hardcastle book. I just have some thoughts and feelings and no real outlet to discuss all of my spoilery thoughts. Okay, here is what it looks like. It's crazy how the lobster mushrooms actually like do look like chunks of lobster. Very weird. And then on top, parsley and basil and feta. My basil plant is thriving. I don't think there's much more plot that I can really talk you through here. Would I recommend this for fans of the Paris Apartment specifically? I'm not gonna say no, but I think just for fans like generally of mystery, detective, like Sherlock and Watson type vibes, who are also down for a little bit of weirdness that I don't remember the Paris Apartment having, then yeah, this could totally be a win for you. But that's that. We're gonna have a movie date and it's time to pick our movie of the night. And that's Ready or Not.
Ready or Not. It's like a bride who she marries into a family with like games, and she has to play a game of hide and seek, like literally, and they try to kill her.
Okay, Rob had to go to bed early because he has to work early, but we watched Ready or Not together and we both really enjoyed it, which is impressive. Normally, like, he doesn't watch horror at all unless I'm forcing it upon him, and the type of horror that I watch he will fall asleep during normally, but this one was like super action-packed, gory. It was a really good time. I've definitely had some other people recommend this to me. I know my friend Dylan has been trying to get me watch it, so I'm really glad that I got to do that. And it went really well. It was recommended in the video where we were talking about Every Value Break. I definitely see all of the connections about like the families and the island and the wedding. It all made sense in my brain. Back to the Paris Apartment. I read the first chapter of both of these and I feel so bad because I want to refilm the intro and just forget that I ever included this because I really am not enjoying the character voice. The first chapter we just learned about the accident that happened to this girl, and she's living in a group home, lost her entire family, and then she's getting taken out of it to go be like a companion to this girl in this family. I'm definitely pretty picky at this point in my reading life about the YA that I pick up. So the first chapter of this, I'm really enjoying the writing, so I'm just gonna go with it because me enjoying a horror for a younger audience is a rare occasion for me. In the first chapter we just got a good lesson on beekeeping, honestly, that I kind of found fascinating. And the whole concept of this is that there's this small town, small community, and there are creatures in the woods that will like grant your wishes before a price. And that just intrigues me more right now, though I feel like this has much less of a connection to the Paris Apartment, but that's okay. Good morning, my friends. I'm just getting ready for the day and I am halfway through Small Favors, so I thought I'd just give you a quick update. Yeah, it wasn't until halfway through the book that we even got introduced pretty much to the idea of these forest creatures, so I feel like that, not that it shouldn't have been in the synopsis, but I feel like there's other things the synopsis should have touched on. Like the main focus of the story is just this little sibling group and their parents leave. And they're essentially left to fend for themselves and like survive the winter and keep the bees alive through the winter. And they're like starving. And so much of it just feels like a survival story, which I love. I feel like there's gonna be a pretty significant romance in here because there is a boy who's giving me kind of like Peter Pan, like Tuck Everlasting, whimsical boy in the forest vibes. And I feel like it's going to be an interesting look at like, who do you trust? The new boy in the forest or your brother? But it does feel pretty rooted in reality. But then also there's this small town like Slewfoot, the Year of the Witching, like controlling community element to it for sure. For life updates, we did decide on The Weight of Blood for the Besties Book Club, and then the Literally Dead Book Club pick gets decided today. Right now it looks like The Woman in the Library and House of Hunger are gonna be the final two that are battling. This is going so well and I'm absolutely flying through it. I'm now at spring. I love how it's divided into seasons. I mean, the ending could go anywhere, but at this point, this is one of my favorite folk horrors that I've ever read, so that's very exciting. It's really quiet. I really like our main character, Ellery. We're just, you know, going through their lives, surviving, interacting with this community. And then in between all of this intricate language and beautiful atmosphere and slow, quiet scenes, there will be some like shocking moments. Like there have been a couple of reveals that have been a lot. I'm having a good time. I realized this is the author who wrote House of Salt and Sorrows, which is a cover that I really like. I finished Small Favors. I'm just picking up Liam from school and I just got Starbucks. I'm on the hot drink wagon. I'm in my fall apparel and so I'm back to dirty chais and it's a good time. I really have no issue with Small Favors, but I feel like I can't give it a 5 because it's not super memorable to me. Even having just finished it, I just have this feeling that I'm never gonna really think about this book again, but it was good and I recommend it to the folk horror crowd. And I think that people have already been loving this and this was like an easy one that I'm glad I picked up because it's one of those kind of like mass appeal, can recommend to pretty much anyone who reads genre similar to this type of book. The ending, maybe if I had to think of something, was like a little bit rushed. I would have liked things to take a little more time. For how long this book is, which is 466 pages, it spent a little too much time in certain places. If you like books that have a little bit of commentary on the patriarchy and have some messy sibling dynamics and also has a little romance subplot, like this is for you. At this point, I've read 4 books. I've had some wins, but no 5 stars. And the books that I've read are books that either the inspiration, the Literally Dead Book Club pick, wasn't 5 stars for me, or when it was being recommended, it wasn't 5 stars for that person. So I think at this point, we need to go to a Literally Dead Book Club that got a high rating and the recommendation got a high rating and the host that was there had a high rating of the book club book, and like everything's just feeling joyful. And that's going to take us to the discussion of They Never Learn by Lane Fargo, in which I got a recommendation from Steffi.
Whisper Network by Chandler Baker. That's more of, I guess it is a thriller. It's about these women in the workplace and their misogynist bosses and stuff like that. And then there's like a plot because one of the guys that works there, I think like their new boss, dies, and we're trying to figure out how, because he dies at the workplace, and we're going through it's like interrogations between all the women there and just seeing how it led up to that point of him like dying. And yeah, I liked it.
At the end of every live show, I ask for recommendations, but at the beginning of every live show, I ask the co-host to tell me their most recent favorite thriller or just an all-time favorite thriller. So the audience who's there, who's just maybe meeting that creator for the first time, can get an idea of their taste and also leave with a recommendation. I could have done an entire video like this, and maybe that is an idea for next year, part 2, where I read the favorites that are listed at the beginning of the live show. But in that one, Whisper Network was mentioned. And this isn't something that I ever thought I would pick up. I feel like the books that I see show up in Reese's Book Club, a lot of them are good. I give a lot of them high ratings, but I also feel mediocre about the majority of ones that I end up picking up. And I think it's because a lot of times the moral of the story is very heavy-handed and is often the same. And I understand that for her book club and her personality and the things that she wants women to read, the things she wants to recommend, the conversations she wants to have with the book club members. It all makes sense and that's not flawed. But sometimes if I feel like I know what the message of a book is going to be, especially a thriller going into it, it doesn't make me super interested to read it because I'm looking for like plot twists and wildness and twists and turns and unlikable people and kind of a different takeaway message from every book that I read. So this it didn't sound interesting to me when I originally saw it. I hadn't really heard from anybody who'd read it. So hearing that Steph gave this 4 stars and gave this 4 stars, which was also my rating, I thought this would be a good one. And I actually read the first 2 chapters sitting here right before talking to you, and there was a little twist at the end of the 2nd chapter that I did not see coming. There's also transcripts to read throughout this that is historically one of my favorite things. And it's already kicking off with a lot of the commentary I was expecting about women in the workplace, the way that male superiors take credit for your work, don't take you seriously, the way that mothers in the workplace are treated, and I just think it's going to be interesting. It reminds me of All Her Little Secrets, which was a book club pick more recently than we read They Never Learn, but we'll talk about that one more later because that also is inspiring another book in this video. Reading update, 100 pages in, enjoying it. I can definitely see why this, I know I should be talking about the book itself and not like investigating Reese's book club, but this very much feels like a Leanne Moriarty book, reminiscent of Big Little Lies and My Husband's Secret, where as the reader you know that something has happened at the beginning of the book, but you don't know exactly what happened, who it happened to, and who did it. So it's still like a murder mystery, but rather than all of the information being laid out to you and you getting clues along the way, the clues you're getting along the way is what the actual incident is and the circumstances in which it happened. And I'm definitely enjoying it. The writing is good and it takes place on my birthday. Okay, quick final thoughts on Whisper Network. Everyone has gone to bed. I am currently trying to bring life back into all of my paints because I'm doing a paint night with my channel members next week. And after my painting experiment, all of these have just been sitting for at least 6 months. So I just added a bunch of water and it seems to be working. So this is what I've been doing for the last like hour. And I did decide to listen to some more of the Whisper Network. It's a fantastic audiobook. My final rating, I think, is like a 3.75. It's like, I enjoyed it and it's the exact story I expected it to be. It's very much inspired by the Me Too movement and talking about harassment, sexual assault in the workplace, and women really coming together. And obviously, like, the whole idea is there's a Whisper Network where, you know, people are talking about everything that goes down. It's important to be supported by co-workers and peers because there's a lot of shared experiences that we have been, you know, taught as women not to talk about, not to share. So I really enjoyed all of the workplace conversations, though I am a little bit like nerdy when it comes to books set in the workplace, and I really do want stuff about the business. I want more like day-to-day activities with your job. Like when I was reading One by Ruth Ware, everyone in the live show was talking about how they hated how much Snoop, the app, was talked about, and how every single chapter would open with something about the company and something about the shareholders and all of this stuff. And like, I live for that. I love it. So that's the one thing that I feel like was missing, because I'm interested in the law stuff and I like lawyer, attorney main characters, and I think I want more day-to-day stuff, though that's not important to the actual plot. As far as being a comp for They Never Learn, I would say, yeah, a lot of the same conversations are happening, a lot of the same goals. They Never Learn is definitely grittier, and not necessarily in like plot points and what's occurring in the story, but the main character you're following and your feelings as you're reading. Though there are characters in here that you don't necessarily like and some that you do, the intended feeling is like power, good for her type energy. While They Never Learn offers that, but it's also about just like following this seemingly unhinged main character who is really hell-bent on revenge by whatever means necessary. And this is more about like a little bit more reasonable. I need to pull a movie out of the jar tomorrow. Remind me to do that. So let's move on to the cutting season. Now this one was recommended in the comments. So many book recommendations show up in the comments of live shows, and it's always so fun seeing those. And a lot of times I go back, or I plan to go back and read through them all later. But a lot of times I'll pop them up on the screen as they're happening, and sometimes one will pop up that I'll jot down in the moment. And The Cutting Season was one of them. This is by Attica Locke, and it's super weird that I just got this one because I just went to like the Reese's Book Club Instagram to see what she was talking about with the Whisper Network years ago. And the very latest post is like an adaptation of Attica Locke and her sister's like story that they wrote. Not this one, but a different book. And it was being adapted, and it has Zoe Saldana, I think. And that was so random. I don't know when this came out. Long enough ago that it probably, oh my god, there's a map, that it wouldn't have been a book club selection by Reese. Let's see, 2012. And when I wrote this down, I fully did not know the plot. All I knew is that it was being recommended for the live show that we were in, which is All Her Little Secrets, which is one of my favorite book club picks of the year. And I think recommendations from the hosts themselves, I had read all of those titles, so I really wanted to pick something for that book, and the comment section, something was offered. So it says, Karen Gray manages Louisiana's stately Belle Vie and antebellum plantation turned tourist attraction, where the past and present coexist uneasily. Tensions mount when a female migrant worker is found in a shallow grave on the edge of the plantation property, her throat cut clean through. As the sheriff's department zeroes in on a suspect, Karen suspects the police are chasing the wrong leads. Putting herself at risk, she unearths startling secrets about the long ago disappearance of a former slave that has unsettled ties to the current murder. Okay, I'm like 2/3 of the way through The Cutting Season, and this was such a good recommendation. I feel like one of the main things I saw people not enjoy about All Her Little Secrets is that this main character is a lawyer, but the decisions that she makes throughout the story don't align with that. Like, she makes stupid decisions. But something that I remember talking about in the live show is how much I found that relatable. This probably is the case with so many careers when you have like clients, and when you do something specific for your client and you advocate for your client and you know all of the loopholes and the ins and outs of how to protect them, how to help them, how to just do your job perfectly so they're set up for success, that when it's you completely forget everything that you've been trained for, and you're suddenly placed in a completely different situation, and you're bound to mess things up because you've just never experienced the world from this perspective. So like when she has to protect herself, when she is being accused of a crime that she knows she didn't do, she just feels like, well, you should just believe me. Like, I'm telling you the truth. I'm going to talk to all the police that I have to, and I'm going to convince somebody because I know that it's true. And I feel like that isn't an inconsistency with Elise in here. I think it just added a really good dynamic to this book, that she just keeps messing up. And I find the same is happening with Karen in here. So she was a lawyer back in the day, and she has some secrets, All Her Little Secrets, the similarities. She's hiding certain things about her past that we don't even know fully, and she has this history of a lawyer, and there's somebody who is being accused of something, and she is being like, no, like, I'm gonna protect this person, I'm gonna do everything in my power to help them, even though I'm not currently a lawyer and I'm just trying to pretend I'm just this manager here. But then as she herself is getting questioned and her daughter comes into things, she has a 9-year-old who she's like, something went on with her. Like maybe she participated in something to do with this crime and the dead body on the plantation. Her daughter like knows about or saw something, and the police want to talk to her daughter too. And like once you get all your emotions involved as a parent and you're just thrown into an unfamiliar situation, like you're bound to mess up. So she's making mistakes in here that as a reader I feel like is kind of frustrating, but that's what's really fun about this. Like the tension is good for me right now. I just can't wait to see where this ends. All right, my favorite book of the video so far, 4.5 stars to The Cutting Season, which is amazing because I had never heard of this book before. So thank you to Readers Gotta Read, or Jay, for recommending this. I would say this is the closest to the actual plot of the book club books that I've read so far. So if you liked All Her Little Secrets, this is a book that I would feel comfortable recommending. Of all of the selections, pretty on point. Something Bea had in common is this discussion of race and discrimination, both like current day still happenings, compared to and similar to history at large. It felt like a really classic crime novel. It had a slow moving pace. It was a murder mystery. You know, there's a bunch of characters throughout the story who you get to learn about, find out all of their motives, and kind of knock one off one by one until you figure out who the culprit is. And there was a really big satisfaction for me with tying up a lot of loose ends in the end. Obviously we got who died, who did it, but there also is a lot of historical conversations. Naturally, with this taking place on a plantation, there's just horrific history explored, and there's a certain amount of closure with historical events as well. With Karen living there and working there, she's grappling with like her participation in this sort of entertainment portion that she's a part of, and also like her family having lived there for so long. There is a semblance of retribution, and the book kind of comes full circle with, I'm trying so hard not to give things away, but Karen just gets to have certain closure with her family, certain things that happened on the property, specifically regarding certain enslaved people. So there's a lot of storylines going on, like her own personal life with the man that she had a child with and all of their dynamics, and then the things happening with this crime. She also is involved like with the family of the woman who died on the property. They get a certain amount of closure. Like, it's all just a very well plotted book. And I felt this way about Notes on an Execution too, that I like objectively gave 5 stars. I'm talking myself into a 5-star with this too, just because I didn't feel like, oh, this is like this incredible, typical for me, I'm looking for like a fast moving plot and twists and turns and reveals. Like, that's not what it was, but it was so objectively well plotted and everything wrapped up so well that I would feel really comfortable recommending this to pretty much anyone, if this is obviously a story you're already interested in. So amazing. Before we move on to the last book, which I've never ever heard of this, it's time to announce the Literally Dead Book Club selection for November. Now, I followed this poll, and for the first 12 hours, it was in favor of The Woman in the Library. It was like 51%, 52%, 53% at times. And then the last 12 hours I was watching it, I was checking in on it like every hour. I was so fascinated by what was going to win. And House of Hunger was edging it out the entire 12 hours by 1%. It was sitting at 51% the entire day. I've never seen a poll this close in my life. And then right at the very last minute, within the last hour, it went back to 50-50. So the final result is that it was an exact split, which actually doesn't make me feel good. It's like, oh, like I picked, or we all picked 2 things, they battled so well, either one could be the winner and it's fine. But I don't feel that way. Like, I want one to edge it out, because I just feel like there are thousands of people now who are going to be disappointed. But with, I think, 13 votes making it the winner, it's House of Hunger, which naturally I am so excited about. And I feel like there are some people who voted for that just knowing that I wanted to read it so bad. I love Alexis Henderson. I'm in my vampire era. I'm just excited to read it. And then I added The Woman in the Library as something that I was interested in. A lot of people told me that we should read it, but the ratings for it are actually like terrible. The average rating is so low. So it's been freaking me out a little bit, but I was excited to pick it up because I like lowly rated things a lot of the time. But House of Hunger, it won. I can't believe it. I'm so excited. And now one more thing I'm going to do is I'm going to pick a movie or a show from here, because I have a couple hours until the boys get home. They're at another hockey game. And if I pull something out that I think Rob would want to watch with me, then I'll wait until this evening. But if it's something that I should watch on my own, like he wouldn't be interested in, I'll just do that right now. So I'm going to be watching. Oh, Election. Oh my god, Reese Witherspoon? She really has us in a chokehold. What is going on? Okay, so this was recommended. It was during the For Your Own Good live show. I don't know who recommended it though.
Have you guys seen Election? It's like an older movie. Reminds me a lot of it.
That's Reese Witherspoon, right?
Yeah, and Matthew Broderick. As soon as she said that on my video, I was like, you are so right.
I definitely don't think Rob would want to watch this with me, so I will do that. I'll do that right now. First though, let me introduce theme music. This is the most probably chaotic pick of this video. It was recommended by Jesse during the My Heart is a Chainsaw live show, though they really did not like this book, and it's one of my all-time favorites.
So it is a book about this girl named Daisy. She's 26 years old, and she was the sole survivor of the massacre of her family. The house that she lived in as an infant goes on auction, and she buys it and moves in with her boyfriend and doesn't tell him that it's the house that her entire family was butchered in.
God.
And it is the same kind of Jade Daniels protagonist. It is a very gory horror book.
Life update. I need to fold my laundry. I'm doing all my sheets and pillowcases and stuff right now. You didn't need to know that? What do you need to know about? I watched Election. No, I really didn't like it. It wasn't exactly the tone I was expecting. I don't know, like it's similar to For Your Own Good because we have like a teacher and student kind of dynamic, you know, very unlikable characters. And, you know, this movie is on a lot of lists and it's one of Reese Witherspoon's best according to a lot of people, and I don't want to talk shit about it. I didn't like it, and I'm mad I just paid like $6 on YouTube to watch it. But moving on to a different conversation also about tone. I don't know. I can't figure out how this book is gonna go. I feel like I've read quite a few books like this. Oh, my family's home. In that we have somebody returning to their family home, and sometimes it turns into like a thrilling, like fast-paced suspense, like Wild Time. And it's supposed to be just about, you know, the mystery and the thrills. And sometimes it's about them returning to their family home and like facing trauma and overcoming something, facing their memories, coming to terms with what happened to them. And I really, it makes me feel like it's on this side of things, but the conversations that are coming up makes it feel like it's going to be more about just her figuring out what she wants in life. And I don't know. I do like the character voice. It does remind me of Jade, just very focused, very intentional, very in her own world and just needing to accomplish something for herself. So it's going good. 3 chapters in, definitely the gore, it's happening. So this was quite a book, quite a time to be alive. I'm giving it 3 stars. If you're looking for something that is kind of the perfect mix between thriller and horror, then this is a good place to go. It is gory for a thriller, but not gory for a horror. I think this was a good comparison to My Heart is a Chainsaw because it takes a while for things to happen. I do feel like people say that book is too long, which I don't agree with, but this I feel like you would equally say is a little too long. I feel like it doesn't really know when to change tones, and then once it does get horror and not scary but like supernatural, it really commits for a long time. And I feel like people will like that about this book because For My Heart is a Chainsaw, maybe if you gave that a low rating, like this would be an interesting place to go because that one, the supernatural bit is so short. This one really delves right into it, and it is like an over-the-top kind of ridiculous book. I think that's okay because like you're also understanding that there are, I mean, it's a ghost story at the same time as just being about a girl going back to her family home and confronting her trauma, but also kind of solving a crime at the same time because she doesn't really know if her dad did it. Because she was 1 year old, because it's this infamous thing that happened, everybody has their opinions on it, everybody has different takes. Think kind of like Home Before Dark vibes. But because all of these people have so many opinions, and when they get to know her and they realize the fame associated with her, they want to talk about certain things, certain people are keeping secrets, she's becoming involved with people who knew her family, didn't know her family. There's a lot of moving parts in the story, and as it says in the synopsis, bodies start to pile up around her. It gets like wild and almost wacky. It did so many things well, but I just can't, I don't know. I don't think I can in good faith recommend this broadly because it's questionable certain like conversations and representation that are coming up, but also maybe you can just like throw that away because you know, it's supernatural. I don't know if there's anything really wrong with this. It was just very easy, you know, every single question you have is immediately answered. Every person just like gets questioned by the police and then they're like, I didn't do it, and they're like, okay, you're free to go. Like, I wouldn't say that this was a, you know, well crafted and smart horror thriller book. It was just a ride. That's what it was. Final thoughts. This is everything that I read for this video. I'm really glad that I did this because I read a lot of like backlist titles, things I wouldn't have probably picked up. It got me really in the fall mood, starting to read spooky things. And while I know that all of the books that were in the book clubs, there are better quote unquote comp titles. There are things that are similar. There are tons of things you could recommend for those, and it's not that these are like the closest things, and that's not the intent, and I'm not putting it on the co-host to like give me accuracy. I just wanted to build a fun TBR, and I did that. I think my final ranking looked like this, though I don't really remember. I read some things that weren't fantastic, and then I read some really good things. Thank you to all the co-hosts, not only for mentioning these, for creating this TBR for me, though you didn't know it, but also just for being co-hosts and making the time to participate in these live shows and join me and talk about all my book club selections. I'm so excited to see what 2023 brings. I'm building a list of things. There are so many new releases I want to read, but also backlist stuff. So if there are any, you know, if you made it to this point in this video and you want to tell me about any thrillers, mystery, or horror books from the last couple years that you think would be fun picks, I mean, I would love to check out your comments, and I'll see you later. Thank you so much for watching. Bye!